The thought resolution protocol presents a scientific, strategically structured approach that maintains strict mediator impartiality, fostering a safe, productive mental environment whereby party self-empowerment and self-determination are maximized and the highest potential for expeditious, mutually satisfactory resolution may occur.
In the thought resolution protocol mediation approach, the introduction to the mediator and the process are done prior to the mediation session in what is termed and identified as an orientation session. In that session, the agreement to mediate is signed and the parties, representatives, and subject matter experts, if any, who will be present in the mediation session are introduced and identify their roles and how they would like to be addressed. This is done so that there is a clear distinction as to when the thought resolution protocol application begins and consistency can be tracked. Another important feature is that the mediator is not briefed on the parties' issues prior to the mediation session. This is intentional. The mediator primes his/her focus on the words, gestures, and actions of the parties as they emerge fresh in the session to be treated without preconceived notions as to any personality, agenda, or interest considerations.
In this mock mediation job discrimination scenario, an employee is claiming to be passed over for a position based on race and sex. Duncan Jones is the employee claiming discrimination. Ms. Burns is the manager of whom the discrimination claim is against. The mediator is Elizabeth. She is demonstrating the thought resolution protocol mediation approach. The following mediation is fictional. Any likeness to a real mediation effort is purely coincidental. The basic selection of this scenario includes loosely captured concepts from several other mock mediation scenarios. The exclusive purpose of this mock mediation scenario is to demonstrate the thought resolution protocol. The strategic structure of this mediation approach does not copy or borrow from any other mediation approach and is exclusively unique. At the end of the demonstration, this video can be viewed with the explanatory notes about the how and why of the Thought Resolution Protocol Mediator Intervention Treatment application. But now, let's join the mediation already in progress.
I am the mediator assigned to mediate this discussion. Information was sent to the parties before this session. The information sent was the following: 1, the mediator resume; 2, the time block for the session; 3, an agreement to mediate form requiring the signatures of the mediator and the parties; and 4, how this mediation process operates. Do the parties have any questions about the process at this point?
I understand.
I understand.
Questions arise at any point during this discussion. The parties are invited to ask them. Would it be helpful to review key points to remind the parties of how this session operates?
It couldn't hurt.
Sure, go ahead.
In this forum, the parties speak directly with one another and not to the mediator. They also exchange any documentation for review between each other and not with the mediator. This mediation session is mainly held in joint session. While caucus sessions are used, they are used by the parties to organize their thoughts and present them to the other parties in a joint session. The mediator renders no decision, but facilitates the parties' discussion to derive their own choices. Any questions?
No.
Not at this point.
Before proceeding, would the parties like to establish any ground rules to help this discussion to go more smoothly? Typically, parties may suggest time limits on a party's presentation or how the parties address one another.
I don't need any ground rules.
I agree. We're all adults here.
At this point in this discussion, a thought is being presented that asserts that only adults are present. Is this an accurate summary? Is this what is being heard?
Yeah.
At this point in this discussion, what thoughts are surfacing about how specifically the thought expressing that only adults are present is relevant or irrelevant to the need to establish ground rules?
I just want to get on with this.
Me too.
The process allows the parties to set ground rules at any point during this discussion. So at this point, who would like to begin?
I want to begin.
Are the parties in agreement with who would like to begin?
Yeah,
Well, Elizabeth, I lodged a complaint against Miss Burns because she discriminated against me. I agreed to this meeting to see if she would settle before I go to the EEOC and file charges against her and this company. I was passed over for a promotion, and I believe because I am a man and I am Black.
It may be remembered in the documentation and the earlier verbal presentation moments ago that this process operates with the parties discussing their issues directly with one another and not presenting the issues directly with the mediator. At this point in this discussion, there appears to be a departure from this operation. Is this an accurate observation?
Yes, I'm sorry. This is new for me. Anyways, Miss Burns, I believe you discriminated against me when you passed me over for the lead customer service manager position.
there was no discrimination. You weren't qualified for the position. Belinda Harper was qualified and she got the position.
Respective thoughts are surfacing that refer to the term discrimination. Is this an accurate observation?
Yes, because there was discrimination.
Yes, and there was no discrimination.
What specifically is being considered as the meaning of the term discrimination, as it is being used in this context and at this point in this discussion?
According to this, the Oxford Dictionary definition, it is the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people, especially on the grounds of ethnicity, age, sex, or disability.
I can agree with that definition of discrimination. However, that is not what happened here.
It appears the parties mutually agreed with the definition of discrimination as presented at this point in this discussion. However, it appears the parties have differing viewpoints on how the term is being applied. Is this an accurate observation?
Looks like it.
Obviously.
At this point in this discussion, what specific thoughts are surfacing about the details of the actions that demonstrate the appearance that discrimination occurred? And what details appeared to demonstrate that discrimination did not occur?
So Elizabeth, can I go on now?
How would the parties like to handle who goes now?
Sure, go ahead. Go on, and then I'm going to talk.
Okay. As you know, I've been working here for 5 years. I have near perfect attendance. My yearly reviews have rated me highly for production and service. Yet Brenda Harper, who is white, has only been employed here for 3 years, gets the lead customer service manager position. I am Black and I am a man, as you are undoubtedly aware. What other reason could there be?
Elizabeth, so is it my turn?
How would the parties like to manage who speaks next?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, the selection of Miss Harper was decided by an interview committee and not me.
And all of you are racist.
Are you going to let me talk?
Say what you have to say.
The criteria for this selection were based on the following. Number one, managerial experience or successful completion of managerial training. Number two, professional persona. The committee looked at all 20 candidates who applied for this position. Articulate communication skills, business attire, and overall grooming, organization skills, ability to motivate and lead a team. Ms. Harper came to work here with management experience, and we didn't have a position for her in management at the time. And since working here, she's been taking management courses at the university to develop herself. And she does demonstrate a professional persona. And she met all the other criteria. So it stands to reason that she would get that position. Further, as I stated, 20 candidates applied for the position. And among these candidates were various races and genders. And some of these people were from the white race and some were men. There was no discrimination or racism involved in this selection.
Yeah, you picked a white person and a woman, didn't you? So out of all the candidates, you could not pick a Black person or a man? And you talk about management experience and development of management experience. Are you trying to tell me that every manager this company has hired or promoted has had previous manager experience or was in school to become a manager?
I don't know how many of them had previously hired managers, had managerial experience, or went to school to develop themselves. I just know that that was part of the criteria used by the interview committee to make this selection.
I know for a fact that there are managers who don't have managerial experience and didn't develop themselves in school that work here. It's like whenever a Black man gets the qualifications to move up in this company, the rules change. The bar is raised higher and he can't make it.
At this point in this discussion, what specific thoughts are surfacing that present tangible evidence that supports or does not support the discrimination is occurring regarding the promotion to this position that can be exchanged for the parties to review?
Mary Travis is white. She didn't even finish high school. She is the manager of the retail division.
Earlier, a thought was presented that stated that there is an intent to file criminal charges for discrimination with the EEOC. Is this an accurate summary? Is this what is being heard?
Yeah, and that is what I'm going to do if we don't settle this here.
That's what I heard.
What specifically is being considered at this point in this discussion as the laws that govern the formal filing of discrimination charges with the EEOC?
Well, I talked with a friend who's an attorney, and he said that this falls under the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act.
What thoughts are surfacing at this point in this discussion with regard to how the EEOC determines that a violation has or has not occurred?
A violation has not occurred.
What thoughts are surfacing at this point in this discussion about tangible evidence, such as documentation, that supports or does not support the assertions about the alleged discrimination that can be presented and reviewed between the parties?
I'm aware that Ms. Travis didn't have this background when she got the managerial position in the retail division, and this was not a part of the criteria at that point. As far as documentation to corroborate what I'm telling you today, I need to get with the interview committee, HR, and our legal department to be able to support what I'm presenting to you with documentation. Can I take a break to see if this documentation can be gathered and presented for this mediation session?
As stated in the information about how this mediation approach works, the process provides for the parties to gather whatever information, advice, etc. the parties deem necessary to communicate to achieve a clear resolution to the issues effectively. So there's a request posed at this point in this discussion about taking a break to gather documentation. How would the parties like to handle this request?
How much time do you need? I'll need about 10 minutes to get my documentation.
I need about 30 minutes.
So what thoughts are surfacing at this point in this discussion about the time needed to gather documentation?
Let's come back in 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock now, so let's say 1:30.
So the parties are back in session. Who would like to go first?
I did get some documentation. I have to tell you that you're going to notice the names of the candidates are redacted for their privacy. However, their demographics are stated. Also, the documentation notes whether or not the candidate had management experience or development. The rating of their professional persona is noted as well. Take a look. I can tell you this, Duncan, you were very highly rated, and you were among the finalists in the selection considerations.
You know, all y'all are still a bunch of racists.
In this documentation I'm showing you, Duncan, you can see that the interview committee comprises 8 people. 3 are African American, 1 is Asian, 1 is Hispanic, and 3 are Caucasian.
You know, the Hispanics and the Asian are going to side with the white people. The Black people are probably Uncle Tom's. There's no hope for a Black man in this company.
A thought is being presented at this point in this discussion, and it appears it's being repeated from earlier in the discussion, and that is about the term racist. Is this an accurate observation?
Because, yes, because they're all racist.
That is an accurate observation. I keep hearing this being stated that I am a racist and this company is racist.
What specifically is being considered at this point in this discussion about the meaning of the term racist as it is being used in this context?
A racist is a person who is prejudiced against Black people and is hell-bent on keeping them from advancing.
That is what I imagine a racist is or could be.
What specific thoughts are surfacing at this point in this discussion and the documentation presented today in the discussion and or the documentation that details the full scope of what appears to identify a racist presence involved in making the selection for this position?
Y'all have covered your tracks pretty well. So what do I need to do to be promoted in this company?
Well, as I said, you were on the short list of considerations. You need to keep up your excellent work. You're an excellent employee. I guess it also depends on what position you want to be considered for.
Well, what positions are available?
You might want to look on the job board. Then I invite you to come visit with me, and I can counsel you on what would be an excellent path to prepare yourself for that or other positions.
Can you guarantee me a position?
Of course, I can't guarantee any position. As I stated about this position, customer service manager, a committee makes that determination. You know, you might also want to meet with the individuals on the committee and let them know of your aspirations and let them provide you with advice. I have to ask, however, it seems you have such a lousy belief about this company's culture and intentions. Are you sure you really want to work here? I mean, I'll try to help you, but really, is this where you want to be?
Now I'm just going to keep holding me back.
A thought is being presented at this point in this discussion that asserts the expression holding back. Is this an accurate summary? Is this what is being heard?
That's what I heard.
And that's what I said, and I mean it.
What specifically is being considered at this point in this discussion as the details that characterize what holding back looks like? What would not being held back look like?
Well, if you do what you just said about counseling me to prepare for promotion, and if I can meet with the interview committee members, that could be a good start to having me a better feeling about this company.
I have no reason not to keep my word about this.
So at this point, where do the parties stand in this discussion regarding the initial claim of discrimination about the selection for the position of customer service manager and proceeding with formal discrimination charges with the EEOC?
Well, if you do this, I can drop the complaint and not proceed with the EEOC.
I hope you also see that I wasn't involved in the selection process, except that I gave you an excellent reference when the committee asked me about you.
Well, thank you for that.
It appears now that the parties are achieving a mutual understanding of the issues presented in this discussion. It appears that new and more positive perspectives regarding the allegations of discrimination and racist activity are emerging. Is this an accurate observation?
Yes.
How would the parties like to memorialize this discussion? Meaning, is there a memorandum of understanding or a settlement agreement that can be drafted to bring closure to this discussion today?
That would be good.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Who would like to actually do the writing of the agreement?
Duncan, you probably have better handwriting than me.
Okay, I can write.
To begin, who specifically is bound by this agreement?
I can be bound, but I cannot bind the company or the interview committee.
I am bound.
So how are the bound parties to be reflected in this document?
I, Duncan Jones, and Miss Barbara Burns agree that
Mr. Jones will look at the job board to determine what positions he would like to consider applying for or applying to.
Is there a time frame in which the viewing of the job board should occur?
I'll be able to provide counseling whenever you're ready.
whenever Mr. Jones is ready, he will meet with Ms. Burns for counseling to prepare for identified positions.
How will the counseling be scheduled? Is there a scheduling process to consider?
Well, actually, I'd like to have 24 hours notice, and then we can schedule an appointment to discuss this.
That's reasonable. But if you don't do anything, I'm going to file the formal complaint with the EEOC.
You do what you think you need to do. I said I'll help you, and I'm doing so of my own free decision and not because I'm under the threat of you filing a formal complaint. Please include that statement in this document.
I'm just saying, but okay, I'm writing this into the document too.
What thoughts are surfacing about what needs to happen if the parties cannot meet as scheduled?
Well, I should be able to meet, but if some emergency or something comes up, I would hope that you'd provide me with the opportunity to schedule at my next soonest availability.
Sure. If Miss Burns cannot meet at the scheduled time, Mr. Jones will set Miss Burns' next and soonest available time.
I'd also like to add that I will let the interview committee know that you want to meet with them to get their advice as well.
Okay, Ms. Burns agrees to let the interview committee know that Mr. Jones wants to meet and get their advice.
But remember, I cannot bind them to this agreement. However, I see no reason why they wouldn't want to meet with you.
Where can I bind the committee to this agreement, nor to a meeting?
What thoughts are surfacing at this point in this discussion about other issues that need to be discussed and resolved?
That's it for me.
I'm good.
What thoughts are surfacing about what needs to happen to manage the enforcement of this agreement? Is there a central location where this document shall be held? And to whom shall it be referred if a breach occurs?
I hadn't thought about that. What do you want to do, Duncan?
Can someone in HR make a file and keep the original? And we keep copies of it?
Well, I'm pretty sure they can do that.
Are there thoughts surfacing about the need for a representative or authority to review this document before signing it?
It's pretty straightforward.
I feel comfortable signing this.
This was a mock mediation demonstrating a job discrimination case using the thought resolution protocol. Thank you for watching.